Ever feel like you just want to learn something new, something really interesting, but without having to dig through like mountains of research and reports?
Well, that's what we're all about, right?
Exactly.
Diving deep, but keeping it fun.
Absolutely. And today we are doing a deep dive into a truly fascinating story. It's all about how something as simple as a plastic bag, the kind you get at the grocery store, became a big environmental problem.
Oh, yeah.
And it's even more inspiring because it's also about how one person, with the help of her community, brought about some really incredible change.
Yeah. The kind of story that makes you think anything is possible.
Right.
So we've been going through this book overview research document, and it really breaks down the story told in one plastic bag by Miranda Paul.
Okay.
And this book, it's a true story about a woman in Jawo, which is a village in the Gambia, West Africa. And our goal today is to sort of unpack this story and understand how the introduction of the plastic bag, something we take for granted, actually created all these problems in Jawo.
Yeah, fascinating.
But even more importantly, we want to see how one person's actions, how they really sparked this remarkable transformation.
I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, I think by exploring this story, it gives us all, listeners, a chance to gain some real insights into environmental awareness, the power of community, and just how much of an impact each of us can actually have.
That's what I love about these deep dives. You always learn something. So to set the scene a bit, the book describes what it was like in Zhao when plastic bags first showed up.
Yeah, it's easy to see why they were appealing at first, right?
Totally.
They were cheap.
Yeah.
Super convenient to carry all sorts of stuff.
Groceries, everything.
Exactly. And they came in all kinds of colors. The research even talks about how they were different from the traditional baskets that people were using, back then.
Oh, interesting.
So you can imagine these new bags, they were kind of a big deal.
Like a game changer.
Sure.
But then, and this is what's so striking, that an initial convenience, it kind of backfired, right?
Yeah, the research really highlights this shift. People would use the bags and then, well, just toss them aside.
And that's where the trouble starts, right?
Exactly, because plastic, as we all know now, doesn't break down easily, not like those traditional materials.
Right.
So these bags just started piling up everywhere. The village, which was once clean and tidy, it became, well, kind of overrun with discarded plastic.
And it wasn't just about how it looked, was it? The book and the research, they detail some pretty serious consequences.
Oh, yeah. Some people tried burning the bags, to get rid of them.
Makes sense.
But that just created this awful toxic smell.
Uh,
Others tried burying them, thinking that would solve the problem.
okay.
But it actually ended up doing more harm than good because it prevented plants from growing properly.
Wow.
And then there's this other aspect, and this is where it gets really interesting, kind of sad too. It affected the animals. The goats, they started eating the plastic bags.
Oh, no.
Which, made them really sick. And in some cases, it even proved fatal.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. It really shows how introducing something new into an environment, even something seemingly harmless, can have these unintended and very damaging consequences.
It's like a domino effect almost.
Exactly. And the research points out another big concern that arose related to health. Rainwater would collect in these discarded bags, which basically turned them into perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes.
Oh, right.
And that, as we know, can lead to all sorts of diseases like malaria.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just an aesthetic problem. It became a real threat to the health and well-being of the whole community.
It's like this perfect storm of unintended consequences. So this is where our main character, Isatou Ceesay, comes in, right?
Yeah, the research introduces her as this young girl who saw all of this happening, this plastic problem just getting worse and worse.
She must have been so overwhelmed.
It's easy to imagine, right?
Yeah.
But what's really amazing is her determination. While many others in the village might have felt helpless or just unsure of what to do, she felt this urge to take action, like she had to do something.
That's inspiring.
It really is. And it raises the question, right? Like, what makes someone step up like that? What motivates them to find a solution when others just sort of, well, accept the situation?
It's a good question.
The research highlights Isatou's ingenuity, her ability to see a potential solution where others just saw trash.
Okay.
And the key here is that she used her knowledge of crochet, which was already a common skill in the community.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't like she invented some complicated technology. It was more about applying an existing skill in a creative way.
I love that.
It's really clever. The research also emphasizes some of her key personality traits. Like she was observant, she took initiative, and most importantly, she persevered.
Those are some pretty powerful
They
qualities.
are, and they're often the hallmarks of someone who drives real change.
Makes sense. So she didn't tackle this massive problem all on her own, right?
Absolutely not.
Which is another really cool part of this story.
Yeah, the research emphasizes the crucial role of the other women in Njau.
Okay.
Isatou, she didn't just set off on her own.
Right.
She brought the other women together to collaborate, to work on this idea as a team.
That's so powerful.
It is. It wasn't just about one person picking up litter. It turned into this collective effort, this movement almost.
I love that. So they work together, but how did they actually tackle all this plastic?
Well, that's where the collaboration becomes really key. The research explains how they joined forces to collect the discarded bags, which would have been a much harder task for just one person.
Right. It's easier when you work together.
Absolutely. And then they all learned how to crochet these bags into new things. What's really cool here, and the research points this out, is that this community action had two major benefits.
Okay. What were they?
First, they were directly addressing the environmental problem.
Farming with the village.
Yeah, but they were also creating an opportunity for economic empowerment. By selling these upcycled purses, the women could earn income, support their families.
That's amazing. Solving two problems at once.
Exactly. It's such a great example of a solution that tackles both environmental and economic needs at the same time.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this transformation actually happened. The research breaks down Isatou's process.
Yeah, so she would gather all these used bags and then she would wash them, which you can imagine wasn't the most pleasant job,
No, not at all.
but it was necessary, to get rid of the dirt and the smells.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes the really ingenious part. She'd cut them into strips and then use her crochet skills to transform them into something completely new.
The research uses the term upcycling, which I think is perfect.
Yeah, I like that.
It's not just recycling, breaking things down. It's taking something that everyone thought was trash and giving it a new purpose, making it even more valuable.
Turning trash into treasure.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And what's truly remarkable is the impact this simple act of upcycling had. As more women got involved, the number of bags being repurposed just skyrocketed.
The research describes these visible changes in Njau. Fewer bags lying around, obviously, which meant less harm to animals and gardens. And overall, just a healthier environment for the entire community. Like they directly addressed those initial problems that were caused by the plastic waste.
Full circle.
Exactly.
So what are some of the key takeaways from this story? What can we all learn from it?
Well, the research highlights a bunch of important lessons. First, it's about environmental awareness and responsibility.
It shows how even something small, like throwing away a single plastic bag, can have a huge effect when everyone does it.
Like the ripple effect.
Yeah. And there's this powerful quote in the research. The actions of one person can multiply and reverberate well beyond themselves.
I like that. It makes you really think about your own habits, doesn't it? Like, what kind of impact am I having?
It really does. It's a reminder that our individual choices, even the ones that seem tiny, they all contribute to the big picture. This story encourages us to be more aware of what we consume, what we throw away, and then the research dives into the idea of community action and collaboration.
Yeah, it wasn't just Isatou on her own, was it?
No, not at all.
It was everyone working together.
Exactly. The research emphasizes how much we could achieve when we work together towards a common goal. In Zhao, it led to a cleaner environment and better economic opportunities for the women.
Incredible. And of course, there's the whole idea of the power of one person, which is really the heart of this whole deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. The research calls Isatou a change maker, which is so fitting. She saw a problem and took action, proving that you don't need to be in some fancy position or have a ton of money to make a real difference.
Anyone can be a change maker.
Exactly. And let's not forget the ingenuity, the resourcefulness. Isatou and the women, they saw value in what others considered trash.
It's like that saying, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
Exactly. The research talks about upcycling as a really sustainable practice. It encourages us to think differently about the things we throw away and to ask ourselves, can this have a second life?
That's a good question to ask.
It is. And the research also talks about the importance of perseverance and determination. It probably wasn't easy for Isatou and the other women.
Yeah, they must have faced some challenges.
For sure. Probably some skepticism too, people doubting them. But they didn't give up.
I kept going.
Yeah, their dedication to making their village a better place really shows how important it is to keep pushing forward, even when things get tough.
It's a good reminder for all of us, for sure. So we've talked a lot about the Gambia, but are there any cultural insights we can take away from this story?
Yeah, the research touches on that. This story gives us a glimpse into life in the Gambia, and the book itself actually uses some words from the Wolof language.
Oh, wow.
It adds another layer to the story, helps us appreciate different cultures and how environmental issues can show up in different ways around the world.
It's all about broadening our perspectives.
Exactly.
And I think it's really cool to learn about the author, Miranda Paul. The research mentions her dedication to researching this story, even traveling to the Gambia to meet Isatou.
It shows how committed she was to telling this story authentically.
Yeah, and her involvement with We Need Diverse Books just adds another layer of depth to her work.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who are interested in learning more, the research actually lists some other books that explore similar themes.
Oh, cool.
Like A Planet Full of Plastic and What a Waste, which both deal with environmental responsibility. And then there's Ada's Violin, which is another inspiring story about finding creative uses for discarded items.
Sounds like some great reads.
They are. So to sum it all up, our deep dive into One Plastic Bag reveals this incredibly inspiring story of Isatou Ceesay and the women of Injao.
Yeah, they took on this huge environmental challenge caused by something as simple as a plastic bag.
And through their own initiative, their community spirit, and their amazing resourcefulness, they not only cleaned up their village, but they also created economic opportunities for themselves.
They really did.
It's such a powerful example of how small actions, when multiplied, can lead to big change.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Building on Isatou's simple but powerful solution, we encourage you to take a look around your own community.
Right.
What everyday problems, the kind we often overlook, might actually hold opportunities for positive change. Maybe if we look at our surroundings with fresh eyes, we can find our own ways to turn trash into treasure, just like Isatou and the women of Injao.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the next change maker.
The possibilities are endless.
That's what I love about these deep dives. They always leave you feeling inspired.
And ready to make a difference.
Exactly.